All right, so we're gonna get going and put this 4L80 back together. So, as I said in the previous video, this is the two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive conversion series. So I do have a lot more detail on my rebuild series, but this is just gonna be kind of a basic how-to on throwing it back together. So if you do hear any extra commotion, it is bath time at my house right now, and my 2-year-old, we just made him get out of the shower and he's losing his mind. So if you hear any of that, it's not a hostage. It's just my kids. So I do have the the reverse band on and the center support snap ring that goes underneath the center support in there already. So now I'm just going to go ahead and assemble the rear carrier assembly. So I did change the output shaft. So I now have the shorter output shaft on there. So that's one of the main differences between the two-wheel drive and the four-wheel drive. If you didn't catch the other video, the reluctor wheel right here is one of the other differences for the rear speed sensor. And there's also a plug in the back of the trans that needs to be changed. So I'm going to take my this guy here to make sure this is all correct. So I do have this little thrust washer guy. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna make sure this thing is all good. There's these little nubs sticking out and they're gonna go inside the holes that are in there. And then this guy, I'll take the sun shaft. So this is kind of a critical piece. There is a lube hole. This hole right here in the sun shaft goes lined up with the little notch inside the sun gear. So that's gonna go on there. And then we'll take this little guy, put this on top here. This guy will eventually come down and sit all the way if it wants to cooperate. And then there's a 3-piece bearing. I'm going to put the 3-piece bearing over the top. So it's going to go there all like that. And just make sure that this thing doesn't fall off the back. I might use some assembly lube to make sure that doesn't fall. There's enough fluid on it, it might stick. So probably keep that. And I'm going to take the center support and put the center support assembly over the top. And we'll sit this thing down, make sure it seats all the way. And then I'm going to take, oh, don't drop it. This thing is very tippy, especially when you're reaching for stuff. So now I'm going to be able to lift this whole assembly. I'm going to try to get this in there without this piece falling off. If not, I'll use some assembly lube and we'll stick it on. It should be good. So there's some holes here, and I'll show you guys. Some holes in the assembly on the center support. Those are actually going to line up with some holes in the case. So just going to drop this down, trying to make sure I get it lined up in the right spot. The center support can be a little bit tricky. Make sure it's down all the way. I'm going to try this again. All right, so that looks pretty close. All right, now it's lined up. So I got all 3 of those holes lined up. So that whole assembly is in there. It took a little bit. But now I'm gonna take this beveled snap ring, and then all the openings of the snap ring, if you're looking at the bottom of the transmission, like this, they all go on like the 9 o'clock position. All right, so I was having a hard time getting that snap ring in there, so I had to take the bottom, the output shaft, twisted a little bit, and then the whole assembly fell down, and then the snap ring popped right in. So it was just holding it up a little bit, stuck on the seal on the backside. So now that I have the center support and the beveled snap ring in, you can go ahead and take the intermediate clutch assembly and put that in there. And got this little wave plate, stuff that down. And then we just got some clutches and some steels. Throw these things in. Steel clutch. And this thing is really fighting me today. Let's see. Sometimes it's a little tricky. Sometimes it goes together really well. But we'll have a little adventure when we get to the drums, I bet. The drums are going to be a treat. I just have a feeling. They usually are, trying to get everything to line up. Clutches to line up with the drums. So now I'm going to put the other snap ring on top of the bands, or the other snap ring on top of the intermediate clutch and steel assembly. This thing is being a biznizzle. At least it snapped in that time, so that should be good. I'm going to take the intermediate band, and there's a little hole that there's like a machined little dimple sticking out of it, and then this is going to go inside there to hold the band in place. That should be okay, and I'll take the direct drum, and this is where it gets tricky, is having to line up these little teeth with the clutches and dropping this whole thing down. So I'm guessing I'm not gonna get this all down in one clip. I'm probably gonna have to edit you guys out. Oh, looks like I got it. So here, metal on metal, so it got seated all the way down. That one actually went in pretty well. I'm kind of happy about that. So I want to make sure I got my thrust washer on the back here to separate the two drums. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to have to shimmy this thing a lot and try to get all these little teeth lined up inside the clutches, inside of the direct drum. I don't think that was down all the way. It's not metal on metal yet. It sounds like it's hitting one clutch. Spur, give me a workout. Maybe it was down all the way. All the clutches look like they're lined up, so maybe it was good. Alright, so that one's good. You can hear it hitting the piston. And I'll be able to tell too if I can't get the pump on, if it's not seated all the way. So I'm going to take the fourth drum. Make sure that I have the hole lined up with the hole in the bottom of the case. There is a little pin up there, like an alignment pin on that. So next, got another 3-piece bearing. Throw the 3-piece bearing on top of the forward drum. And then this whole assembly will drop in. But again, we gotta line up all the clutches and get this whole freaking thing to sit down all the way properly. And there you go. So that's the whole gut assembly there. Ready to go back, and now I can put my gasket on, and then the pump can go back on. So you do have a gasket here. This one I'm going to replace. I did go ahead and buy a new gasket because I knew this was going to be destroyed when I pulled this thing apart. So we do have the pump, and then there is another little washer right here. You can see that. So I'm going to replace the gasket, and then I got to get it out of the house, but then we can throw that thing back on. So that wasn't too bad getting that together. Alright, so got everything back together. Got the pump back on. I'm going to put the check balls in. This one's not going to get a check ball because of the HD2 kit. If this was a factory trans with the HD2 kit, or without the HD2 kit, it would get that check ball in there. So there's going to be 7. And you can see the little check ball locations because it's just like a little dimple that holds a ball, except in that spot. So that one is good. Put this little guy back in. And I'm going to put the reverse servo back in. Oop. If I can stop dropping bolts here. Put the gasket back on first. Maybe I don't even need to. Just go ahead. I'll do it this way. Sure, how about that? This thing back on so it lines up. And I'll start the bolts. When I took it apart, I just kept the bolts with this thing. Alright, so you also have these 2 little bolts here before you put the valve body back on. This one is the 3/8. I'm just going to put this one in real slow. And then this one's going to be the Torx. So this one's going to go in there. I'm not going to over tighten them. I'm not going to be way overly ambitious here. Make sure these things are tight, and then we'll go through and start putting the valve body on. I busted my knuckle on the case of the transmission. Aluminum is very sharp. So be careful. So I'm going to take just 2 regular valve body bolts, and I'm going to get ready to flip the valve body back over. But I'm going to find 2 valve body holes that just kind of line up the gasket. I'm going to make sure this manual valve is pushed in all the way, and then I'm going to line it up with the little selector lever. Guess I'm a little paranoid about the gasket because it's used. And I don't want it to shift around. Alright, so I did go ahead and put some of the 10 mil bolts on, just kind of in there, a couple threads down. I'll go ahead and put this little switch pad on. Make sure I got all the holes lined up. So this is going to take all 8mm bolts. They're all the ones with the smaller heads. So there's kind of a funny order that some of this stuff goes together, so I'm not really gonna tighten it all down. So this little rear tube, this is like for the rear lubrication. So it goes in the valve body here, and then in this little hole in the back. So I'm just gonna kind of mock some of this stuff up, because some of these got to be done in a certain order. So this one will go down, but this thing is also going to hold this pin down. These have to go on. This is for the little detent lever. So I think that's pretty much it. But then the wiring also has to come in. So I'm going to go ahead and plug the wiring in. Make sure that's all in the right spot. And the plugs are like, they're only going to go in one way. So they're only going to go in, there you go, see, the one plug wouldn't fit in. So it's not going to let you it's not going to let you mix them up. And this, I'm going to go under like this, because this has to get plugged into here. And then I'm not going to suck these down because I got to figure out which bolts these little clamps go on. There we go. So now that I got everything pretty much mocked up, I'm going to go through and start to tighten down the 10mm bolts. So I'm going to be pretty careful with how I do this. I am going to be very slow. I'm going to put this on the lowest setting. I'm just going to use this to kind of snug these down, because I did break one off once. I don't want to do that again. Then I'll just go through and kind of finish tightening them up by hand. But I did find when I did that, this bolt is the same size as the jack handle, my Harbor Freight jack handle. So I actually have a valve body bolt holding my jack handle together, the little extension. So here's a situation that I'm talking about right here. So if you put this one down first and you connect that tube, you're not going to be able to get to this one. So I'm going to make sure that this one is completely tight before I go ahead and put that other one in. So I don't have to put that tube on and then take the tube back off. So there's one of the weird ones. We'll get this thing pressed in. Did not want to come up by hand. It was barely even in there. this is going to be a little bit tricky. Jeez, I'm going to put it in the back side lube hole and then the front hole. There. Now I want to tighten this down. Make sure that thing is good and tight. I'll probably go through and snug up the rest of the 10 mils. And do my best not to break them all off. So yeah, this part is not really, I mean, the stuff isn't really difficult. I think it's intimidating for people at first because they've never done it before, just like anything else. I know I was very intimidated. I didn't even want to do it. Didn't even want to do this. And I asked on YouTube, I'm like, what do you guys think I should do the first time it went? The pump went bad, so I didn't have any gears. I'm like, what do I do? Guys are like, rebuild it, figure out how to do it. Okay, so I made a rebuild series, learned how to do it, made a video, and that is actually, the 4L80 rebuild is my highest searched videos on my channel right now, and I've had this channel for 9 years. Or, yeah, 9 years. And the last thing I gotta do is tighten up all these little 8 mil bolts here. Gonna get them snugged down by hand and then tighten them with the big old wrench here. And then I'll be ready to put the oil pan, well, I gotta put the filter on first, but I'll be ready to put the pan back on. And everything should be pretty much ready to send. I'll show you the rear extension housing, basically the adapter that is going to go on the transfer case. I did order a transfer case today. If you guys saw the poll on my community tab, I was asking about a transfer case. I did ask about buying a 261 transfer case and then just swapping the input shaft, because the one I had local to me was from a 4L60, so I'd have to swap the input shaft. But I ended up finding one. It was a little bit more expensive, but it's a 261 HD, so it's the HD model. I just went ahead and did that one. It's refurbished, a little bit more nice and clean, fresh rebuild, and it comes with a 1-year replacement warranty on it. So I guess I couldn't really pass that one up, and it's, I don't know, I'm sure I'll be in a transfer case rebuilding one someday, but that one I don't know, for the convenience, and I was just willing to pay the extra. It was actually like double the price, but just went with that because I felt like it. So there you go. Now you guys can't always give me shit for being cheap, because I wasn't cheap on that one. So I'm gonna put the filter back on. We just double check everything. My head is really not with it today. I messed up a couple things and forgot some things and had to go back and this and that. So I'm gonna double check, make sure everything's okay. Everything looks fine. Manual valve is inside the lever. So I'm gonna put this thing on, and we'll cross our fingers that we're gonna be able to just pull it right out of the driveway when we're ready. no issues. No issues, no tissues. So, should be okay. I'm going to put the pan back on. I cleaned it out first. It's not that dirty, but use a little wipe down. I'm going to wipe this down. Oh, and then I just can't wait to clean the garage, get everything clean. This is such a mess doing this. I'm not very good at containing all the mess yet, so I'm working on that. Just hard unless you got a big tray. I was thinking about getting one of those trays for underneath the engine stand. Those big black trays. I really want to get one of those. I think that'll help me a little bit, but alright, so this thing is ready to go back on. And I did get a second engine stand, but I don't even know if I'm going to need it now because I'm done with this. I wasn't really planning on being done with this already, so but I am now, so I'm not going to need the second stand. But I'll have it just in case, so maybe I could someday be really awesome and have two engines on the stand at one time. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you get the idea, guys. This is just putting the pan on, and then the real difference is instead of the tail shaft, like the normal tail shaft extension housing, this guy, it's going to have this on. That's going to be the adapter for the transfer case. So that's really all I got to do yet. Put the pan bolts in. I'll put this thing on, and we're done. So there it is. Dunzo. Alright, the last thing I did was go ahead and put this adapter plate on. So that's pretty much the last step. Everything should be good to go. I'm going to get this thing down, get it off the stand, clean everything up, and wait for the transfer case to come in.